Hi everyone. So this week we're going to be talking about creating chloropleth maps with Google Fusion Tables. Google Fusion Tables is actually widely used in the industry, in part because it is one of the fastest, most flexible, efficient, effective ways to create interactive maps. And Google Fusion Tables was actually used to create this map. Many of you are probably familiar with it. It's been used to create a lot of the interactive maps on the Guardian's data blog, which you may have seen as well. And so we're going to take a look at how we generate this. So every map that you create with Google Fusion Tables is made up of two parts. One is the so-called geometry, or the shape of the things that you are trying to map. So in this case, we can clearly see that we have the shape of the flood zones, right? These are what we would call polygons, multi-sided figures, and in KML, also called keyhole markup language, that's exactly how they're described. There's an entity called, there's a tag called polygon, and then there's a series of coordinates that essentially describes all of the points along all of these lines to generate the outline of a particular polygon. So what we're going to do is build on our data analysis information from the other week, and we are going to create a map of New York City school districts. And in order to do this, I'm just going to do a simple Google search for New York City School Districts KML, because KML is a data format that I'm interested in. And you can see actually one of the first things that comes up here, I actually did not generate this page, don't worry, is New York City School Districts. And actually they've chosen to store this information in actually in a Google Fusion table, which is really handy because it lets us preview what the actual outlines look like. If we were to use a different, link, such as the one that linked directly to KML, we could do that, but we would kind of need to upload it to a Fusion table in order to visualize the KML to make sure that it sort of corresponded with what we were looking for, right? We have this issue where somebody might describe a geometry as something, a geometry as something that it isn't quite. So this is really handy because we can preview it and say, yeah, that looks pretty well like the New York City school districts. But I'm not going to actually download the KML directly. What I want to do next, because I need to be able to combine this with my data, what I want to see is what kind of additional information is available on this besides the outlines. So I'm going to change to a table view here. This is actually the so-called old look. You can see I have this option to switch to the new look, the old view of Google Fusion Tables. And so I can see a few things here. I have this column called geometry, and I see that there's just this. All of the columns look like they're the same. They say KML ... That is what Google Fusion Tables populates in a column when the cell, or in a cell, when the information inside it is valid KML. In other words, it describes a geographic region as a series of coordinates. So in fact, the nice thing about KML is that most of the time we don't even have to look at it because we're going to be working with existing geographies that we can just visualize and check and see if they correspond with the areas that we're looking for. So I don't actually want to edit this, but if I do click into it, I can see how it works here. And what we see is that it's polygon. It's called a linear ring, and it's basically many coordinates strung together that create a closed loop that is the many-sided figure or polygon that corresponds to the other elements in the row. So there's some additional information here. There's a geometry vertex count. Probably not a lot of use to us in this case. Same thing for shape length. Shape area could be interesting at some point, right? Kind of gives you the idea of how much, how much space this entity takes up. But depending on your KML source, you're going to get lots of different things. The main things that we need to look out for is the KML valid? And is there a column of a corresponding column available that gives me something that I can hook my data onto? In other words, is there a column that I can effectively use to tell Google Fusion Tables to zip this KML together with my data? So what I see here is this school district column that has numbers in it. Now, I'm going to take a guess that these school district columns, school district numbers, are the actual numbers of the school district, similarly to what we saw previously. So I'm going to go ahead and look at my text file. I have gone ahead and already generated just a small spreadsheet that has the geographic district numbers and the median graduation percent rate from those, again, building on the work we did the other week. It was actually much more time consuming than I expected to do this. But, you know, I can do a quick reality check here. I see 32 rows here. Actually, if I switch to the new look here, it will give me a summary of the rows. This says 33, so I'm pretty close. The good news is that because I'm sort of zipping this information together, my final map will highlight for me the geographic district for which I'm missing data. And I may need to sort of go out and remediate, or I may have to just simply indicate on my map that I have no data for that. So I have my median graduate percent, and I have the number of the district. So hopefully you all can see at this point, right, that there is probably a way for me to create something that can pull these two tables together. Now I have two options, right? I can make this value match this value, or I can go in the other direction, right? It doesn't matter which one I choose to match to. They just have to match. So I'm going to sort of take the easy route here. I'm going to do what we did previously. I'm going to split this into several columns, and I'm going to make my separator that pound sign. Right? So what I expect is that I'm going to get two resulting columns, one that says New York City Geographic District, and the next one that has just the number in it. And indeed, that's what I've gotten. So pretty well what I'm looking for. And based on this, I can actually, I mean, in reality, right, I could simply delete this column. I'm probably going to leave it because, as we've noted in the past, right, if I don't actually keep track of what this information is, chances are I'm going to forget. So I'm going to go ahead and export this as a CSV, right, save it, try to give it a meaningful name. New York City graduate. So I'm saying median graduate percents. Okay. So I've got that done. I'm going to download a copy of this table. I'm also going to download it as a CSV. I could do it as KML, but again, CSV is a nice option for us. And I'm going to give this a new name, New York City School Districts, KML, right? Just so, again, as I'm looking through my files, data management for yourselves is a really important part of this process. And in fact, actually, I think I've already failed in not creating my work file. So let's call this process. And in here, I'm going to say, right? So in my process file, we're going to start with the fact that I've pulled the fusion table from this location, pulled KML from here, okay, split, median grad rate data, to isolate school district numbers, saved as, what did I save that as? Let's take a look at my folder here. And my folder says, I saved it as New York City median graduate rates percentage. So I'm going to take that. Okay, so this is a good start. Okay, I've got a little bit of info here about what I've been doing. Now, the next step is to generate two separate fusion tables of my own, on my own account, right? One is going to be a copy of this table, that's pretty straightforward, and the second is going to be a copy of this table, also very straightforward, right? I've got two CSVs, not a complicated thing to go and upload them to Google Fusion Tables. So, here we go. I'm going to say create fusion table, right? Browse my computer for useful information. So InfoViz, fusion tables map. Okay, so the first one I'm going to look at is my KML. Okay, so again, we see the same thing. Okay, attribute data to, I'm going to right, perhaps not the original one, but it's a good way for me to get back there. Right, you're going to want to elaborate this more, of course, just to give you a preview. Okay, so one thing that we see is actually that Fusion Tables here has automatically generated a map for me, which is pretty handy. Why has it done this? Because it recognizes that geometry is KML. KML describes geographic regions. Probably we want to map this. So if I flip over to Map of Geometry, I see that I get basically the same thing that I saw in the JSchool tutorial Fusion table, which is a good start. So next, I'm just going to leave this for now. I'm going to go back to creating a, I'm going to go back to Google Drive and I'm going to create another Fusion table. This Fusion table is going to be my data Fusion table. So again, I have my median graduate percent CSV. Okay, I've got my various column names here. And I'm going to say attribute data to myself. Calculated Excel using New York State data. Again, I could and should be more elaborate than this. I'm leaving it's an exercise for you all to be thorough in your documentation. We will be looking for that in your assignments. So interesting things happened here. So I come to my Fusion table and I see this yellow highlight and it seems to be offering me a map of district name. Now, when I click this map, it's going to do the geocoding for me. And in the end, not a whole lot happens. Why? Well, one of the things that Google Fusion Tables does by default is it looks at columns and it says, does this look like something that's geographic? And that yellow highlight that sometimes appears is the indication that Fusion Tables thinks that what is in that column describes something geographic. Now, sometimes it does, for example, often we'll see this with city names. It often doesn't work the way that we expect. So for example, if we put Italy in there, it would not automatically generate an outline of Italy. It would actually just generate a set of points. It would sort of calculate the geographic center of Italy and give us a point. In this case, we can see that everything started out with good intentions, but in reality, it didn't produce anything useful. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this map. Because I don't want to be confusing myself at this point. So what I have now are two separate Google Fusion tables. One contains my KML shape information, the other contains my data, and most importantly, each of them contains a column that has the district number, the school district number on it. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can combine these two tables together, and then from there, how we can generate a choropleth map based on the median graduation rate of each of these school districts. So I will see you all in a few minutes.